Tonight, the whole room gave a standing ovation for the perfect lawyer, the new assistant district attorney. I, the daughter with no real job, sat by the service door, feeling the cold draft from the kitchen. In 10 minutes, a surprise announcement will flip this room, swapping the people who talk about real careers and the one being ignored. I did not plan this moment. I just prepared for the consequences. My name is Riley Hart. I am 29 years old, and in this room, I am invisible. Tonight, I am at table 11. It is not a table of honor. It is the afterthought, the circular folding table shoved into the back corner of the banquet hall, pressed so tightly against the service entrance that the stainless steel double doors swing open every few minutes to release a burst of metallic clattering and cold air. I can smell grease and disinfectant soap. I am wearing a simple, dark blue sheath dress. It is a designer piece, but in this room, it registers as plain, underwhelming. It lacks the sequins and structured shoulders that populate the tables closer to the stage. Across the hall, bathed in the golden, forgiving light of the Aurelia Hotel's main chandelier, is my older sister, Sloane Hart. Sloane is 32, and this entire event, all 150 self-important guests, are here for her. Sloane has just been sworn in as the new assistant district attorney for Northport County. She is, as my mother Elaine Hart has been loudly proclaiming to anyone within earshot, the family's true north, the real success. My father, Franklin Hart, stands beside Sloane, his posture rigid with a pride that is almost painful to watch. He is a man who trusts pensions, paid time off, and hierarchical structures. He believes in real jobs, a phrase that has been the unofficial motto of the Hart household for my entire life. A real job is one you can explain in a single, respectable sentence. Sloane is a lawyer. That is a real job. My mother, Elaine, spots me from across the room. Her smile, which had been blindingly bright when aimed at the mayor, falters for just a second. It tightens. She excuses herself from a conversation with a judge and makes her way through the maze of tables. She navigates the room like a general, her sequined jacket a form of armor. She does not sit. She leans in, placing a hand on my shoulder. Her rings are cold. "Riley, darling," she murmurs, her voice a strained whisper meant to convey intimacy, but delivering only correction. "You look neat. I was telling Judge Hemlock all about Sloane's caseload." She sighs. A long, theatrical release of air. "I just wish you were more like your sister. Gosh, what a night. Sloane has a proper career. She has benefits, a real pension plan, status. She's finally doing something important, something that matters." I keep my hands folded in my lap. The linen tablecloth is stiff and scratchy. "She looks very happy. Mom." Elaine nods, as if I have stated the obvious. "Of course she's happy. She's worked for this. She's earned it." Her eyes scan table 11, taking in the county clerk's quiet cousin and the 2 junior paralegals, who clearly drew the short straws. Her gaze dismisses all of us. "Well, try to mingle," she says, giving my shoulder a final, corrective pat. She turns and glides back to the center of the room, her gravitational pull returning her to Sloane's orbit. I look up. A massive, deep burgundy banner is strung up behind the stage, the kind of thing reserved for political rallies or high school graduations. In heavy serifed gold thread, it reads, "Serving the community is glory." The irony is so thick, I can barely breathe. The words feel like a personal attack. I am, through a foundation so deeply buried in nondescript holding companies that my own parents' accountant could not find it, the largest anonymous donor to the Northport County Community Fund. The checks I sign, under a name that is not my own, funded the new pediatric wing at the hospital and the technology upgrade for the entire Maple Ridge Public Library system. I have served this community, but I did it quietly, because my definition of service does not require a banquet and a banner. The master of ceremonies, a local councilman with bleached teeth and ambitions that are too big for his suit, taps the microphone. The resulting feedback squeal causes the room to flinch. all right, he booms, his voice echoing artificially. Let's settle down. Now, it is my distinct honor to welcome the woman of the hour, a woman who knows what it means to work hard, to dedicate herself to public service. Let's give a huge Northport welcome to the real winner of the night, our new ADA, Sloane Hart. The room explodes in applause. Real winner, real job, proper career. The phrases swirl in my head, a familiar, acidic cocktail. My entire life has been a silent protest against this singular, narrow definition of success. My work. The thing I bled for and built from lines of code on a second-hand laptop is not real to them. It is not real because it is not here. It does not wear a suit. It does not carry a briefcase. It does not punch a clock in a government building. My job is Starforge. I am the founder and chief executive officer. We are not just a gaming platform. That is the reductive description my mother uses. We are a persistent universe, a digital infrastructure, an ecosystem that hosts millions of interactions a second. We have server hubs on 3 continents and employ over 3,000 people. But here, in Maple Ridge, I am just Riley, the vague younger sister, the one who works with computers, the one with potential, but no practicality. As if summoned by the thought, my clutch vibrates on the table, a single, insistent buzz. I slide the phone out, shielding the screen with my hand. The man to my left, a distant cousin of my father's, is in the middle of a passionate monologue about the inefficiencies of the local recycling program. The notification is an email. The subject line is brief. Ledger. My blood runs cold. My stomach plummets. 3 hours ago, I had sent a frantic, bordering on unprofessional email to Diana Shaw, the editor-in-chief of Ledger. Ledger is not a tech blog. It is the last bastion of serious, long-form investigative journalism. They had spent the last 6 months embedded with my team. This was not a fluffy profile. It was a 9,000-word deep dive. It is the cover story for their upcoming special issue. The architects of the digital entertainment infrastructure. I had asked, begged, Diana to hold the story, to give me 1 more week, just one, just until after Sloane's party. I tap the email open. The reply is short, definitive, and utterly unsympathetic. Riley. The issue is printed. The physical copies are already on trucks. We cannot hold a print run of this size. The digital edition is locked, cached, and scheduled to syndicate at precisely 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Congratulations on the piece. It's fantastic. D. I glance at the ornate clock on the far wall. It is 8:51, 39 minutes. A wave of nausea hits me. I am pinned. I am trapped between 2 irreconcilable worlds. In this room, at table 11, I am the family's gentle failure, the quiet, mousy daughter who is good with tech and will probably never find a husband. I am the person they look at with a mixture of pity and mild confusion. But out there, in the world that they do not see and cannot comprehend, I am the subject of a cover story that will, in 39 minutes, broadcast my face, my name, and the valuation of Starforge to the entire world, the valuation I have spent a decade carefully, meticulously obscuring, the number that will change everything. I am the person who signs contracts that make seasoned venture capitalists tremble. I am the person who just approved a budget for our new Helsinger hub that is larger than the entire municipal budget of Northport County. But in this room, I am the person who is not real. This has always been the dynamic. Sloane and me. She is the blueprint. I am the deviation. She followed the path my parents laid out with meticulous, unwavering obedience, the right schools, the right honor societies, the right, safe internships. She is the living embodiment of their ambitions. I was always just potential, that was the word, the brand seared into my childhood. Riley has so much potential, the teachers would say. If only she would apply herself to the curriculum. My parents heard potential and translated it as impractical, Unfocused. A risk. Sloane was stability. I was chaos. The man to my left, the recycling complainer, finally notices me. He nudges my arm. "So, Riley," he says, his voice loud and condescending. "Your mother tells me you're in tech. That's great. Great. We're always looking for good IT people down at the firm. You know, fixing the printers, untangling the server cables. It's a stable field. For sure. Good. Solid work." I feel the muscles in my jaw tighten. The exhaustion of this fight, the sheer, bone-deep tiredness of trying to explain my life, washes over me. "I am not in it, actually," I say, my voice flat. "I'm on the development side. I'm a founder." "Oh, development," he says, nodding, his eyes already glazing over, searching for a more interesting conversation. Right. Well, whatever it is, you look a little wound up. You should be more like your sister up there." He jerks his chin toward the stage, where Sloane is accepting a glass plaque. "Look at her. Not a care in the world. That's what a real job gets you. Security." Security. I think of the 3,642 employees whose families depend on the paychecks I sign. I think about the server architecture I personally designed to withstand a catastrophic DDoS attack. I think about the deal I closed last month that secured our infrastructure for the next decade. I look at Sloane, who is now laughing, her head tilted back, her pearls gleaming under the stage lights. She is the perfect picture of success. She is safe. She is real. I, Riley Hart, founder and CEO of Starforge, a company whose last private valuation hit a number I refuse to even think in this room, am sitting at table 11, feeling the cold draft from the kitchen. I take a single, slow, deep breath. The air is sharp with the smell of old coffee and industrial bleach. 36 minutes. I do not check my phone again. I slide it back into my clutch and hear it click shut. I fold my hands in my lap, on top of the scratchy linen. I will wait. I will let them have this room, this banner, this speech, this entire hollow performance. I will let them celebrate the real job. I will let them have their moment, right up until the second the truth decides to push open those service doors and speak for itself. The air in the banquet hall is thick with the smell of overcooked salmon and cheap perfume. Sloane is on stage, accepting a floral arrangement that is almost as big as she is. The applause is polite but sustained. My father is dabbing his eyes. I am not here. I am in a beige, cinder-block classroom in 9th grade. My mother is sitting on a chair built for a child, her back rigid. My guidance counselor, Mr. Henderson, is looking at my report card. "Riley has enormous potential," he says, tapping his pen on the desk. My mother, Elaine, does not smile. "Potential does not pay the bills. Mr. Henderson, what she lacks is discipline." She turns her gaze on me, the same look she gave me across the hall just moments ago. "She needs to be more like her sister. Sloane gets A's. Sloane does the work." I had just spent 2 straight weeks, 16 hours a day, locked in my room. I was not slacking. I was teaching myself to code. I had built my first complete, text-based adventure game. It had multiple endings, a branching narrative, and a functioning inventory system. I built it from nothing. When I showed it to my father, he stared at the green text scrolling on the black screen for a long time. He adjusted his glasses. "This is interesting. Riley," he said, clearing his throat. "But how does this help you with your SATs? Your sister is already taking prep courses." I look down at my own hands, resting on the stiff tablecloth. They are not the hands of a real lawyer. They are the hands of someone who spent 8 years typing so fast and so long that I now have to wear a brace for the carpal tunnel pain that shoots up my right arm. When it came time for college, I was accepted into a specialized program for computer science and digital media. My mother told her friends I was good with computers. "Are you going to be fixing them?" she asked me over the phone, her voice tight with confusion. "Is that a full-time thing?" 2 weeks later, a thick embossed envelope arrived from Brooks and Hale Law School, a prestigious, old-money institution. Sloan was in. My parents took the acceptance letter, framed it, and hung it in the dining room. My father went to the university bookstore and bought a car decal. Brooks and Hale Law. The next week, he bought another one. Future ADA. He stuck them both on the rear window of his sedan. The phone calls started my senior year. "You need a plan, Riley." My mother's voice, sharp and anxious, crackling through the receiver. "Sloan already has a clerkship lined up. You need a real job. Something with a 401k. Something with medical and dental insurance. You cannot just play on your computer forever. A real job." That was the cudgel. That was the weapon they used to beat back any idea that did not fit into their narrow, Maple Ridge worldview. After graduation, I did not get a real job. I moved into a damp, bald-infested attic apartment in a city 3 states away. The rent was split 3 ways with my co-founders, Maya Ortiz, our future chief technology officer, a genius with code who could make a server sing, and Theo Malik, our future chief operating officer, a man with so much charisma he could sell a vision to a brick wall. We had nothing. We had 3 laptops, a single whiteboard, and a shared, desperate belief that we were building something new. We slept on air mattresses that were flat by morning. We lived on instant ramen for breakfast and cheap, burnt coffee for dinner. I remember the rejections. I remember every single one. 47. 47 times we sat in sterile venture capital offices, under fluorescent lights, pitching our hearts out. 47 times we were told no. We were too young. The idea was too big. The market was not ready. We were not a good fit. I remember the pitch where a partner in a gray suit interrupted me, held up his hand, and said, "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I just don't see how this is different from a video game." We would walk out into the rain. Theo's suit soaked, Maya's glasses fogged, and my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and adrenaline. We would go back to the attic, put the kettle on, and get back to work. Our first product was called Nebula Blocks. It was a disaster. It was buggy. The user interface was clunky, and the concept was flawed. We launched to a tiny flicker of interest, maybe 200 active users. Within 6 weeks, we were down to 17. The server costs were eating us alive. We were broke. Theo was ready to quit. Maya was looking at job postings back home. I was staring at the wall, at the whiteboard covered in dead-end code, and I refused. I would not fail. I would not go home and admit they were right. I would not go home and fix printers. I walked out of the apartment. I went to a used car lot on the edge of town. I sold my old Subaru, the one my parents had given me for my high school graduation. It was the last real thing I owned, the last tie to them. The transmission was shot, and the left fender was crumpled. I got $2,800 for it, in cash. I walked back into the attic. I threw the wad of bills on the kitchen table. Maya and Theo just stared at it. "That's 3 more months," I said. 3 more months of rent and server time. We are not done. We pivot. We start over. Tonight. That same night, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was bright, giddy. "Riley, you will never guess. Your sister is in the local paper. A small picture. But it's her. She passed the bar exam. Top marks. They wrote a whole little paragraph about her. She's got a real job now, at the prosecutor's office. Oh, we are just so proud. Isn't that wonderful news?" I was standing in a cold, dark attic, holding $2,800 in crumpled $20 bills that smelled like engine grease. "That's amazing, Mom," I said, my voice hollow. "That's a real job." We did not sleep for a month. We did not just pivot. We tore the entire concept down to the studs. We threw out Nebula Blocks. We kept the core engine. We started over. We would build a world, not just a game, a cooperative, open-ended universe, and at the center of it, we would put Maya's new project, an anti-toxicity protocol, an AI-driven moderation system designed not just to punish bad behavior, But to actively reward and incentivize collaboration and kindness, we would build a digital space where people could build, not just destroy. We called it Starforge. The night we launched, we did not have a party. The three of us were huddled around my laptop in the attic. We had $60 left in our bank account. Okay, I said, my finger hovering over the enter key. Let's go live. I pressed the key. We waited. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. The user counter read 0. Then it read 12. Then 81. Then 400. My phone buzzed. It was an alert from our server host. Bandwidth usage at 50%, Maya read, her voice trembling. The counter hit 1,000, 2,000. Bandwidth at 90%, Maya said. That's not possible, I whispered. Riley, Theo said, pointing at the screen. It's frozen. The screen went white. The server crashed. We sat there, in the total silence of the attic, staring at the error message. The entire system was down. We had failed. And then Maya started to laugh. It was a low chuckle, then a full, hysterical laugh. Theo joined in, and then I did. We were laughing so hard we were crying, clutching our sides. We had crashed it. We had crashed the server because too many people had tried to log on at once. It was the most beautiful, catastrophic failure of our lives. We had built something people actually wanted. That was a long time ago. 2 years after that night, Starforge had 25 million daily active users. We opened our headquarters in Revel City, a massive glass and steel building. We opened our European hub in Helsinger. I bought a penthouse apartment. I paid off Maya's and Theo's student loans. I created the Anonymous Foundation. And I told no one. I told my family I had a good job in tech. I let them believe I was a mid-level manager, a cog in someone else's machine. I let them believe it because I had seen what their pride looked like. It was a weapon. It was a sticker on a car. It was a framed letter on a wall. I did not want to be their trophy, but more than that, I did not want to break them. I did not want to take the one thing that held our family together, Sloane's success, the real success, and shatter it. I did not want to unleash this number, this valuation, this truth, into their fragile suburban lives. I chose to be invisible to protect them. I look up. Sloane is walking back to her table. Table number 1. She is glowing. She catches my eye from across the room. She gives me a small, tight smile. The smile of a winner. The smile of someone who knows, with absolute certainty, that she is the one who did everything right. The clock on the wall reads 9:24. 6 minutes. The Aurelia Hotel is the kind of place that tries too hard to look old. The gold leaf on the ceiling is too bright. The oil paintings in the lobby are reproductions, and the string quartet in the corner is playing a limp, uninspired arrangement of a pop song. The chandeliers are massive, dripping with fake crystal, casting a warm, jaundiced light over everything, making everyone look slightly ill. My mother, Elaine, is in her element. She is guiding Sloane by the elbow, a victory lap in 3-inch heels. They are a force of nature, moving from cluster to cluster of Maple Ridge's finest. I watch them from table 11, a social Siberia. They stop to laugh with Judge Hemlock, who pinches Sloane's cheek. They move to Mr. Abernathy, the banker who holds my parents' mortgage. They stop by the museum board members, a tight circle of women in identical silk blouses, who all coo over Sloane's important new role. Through this entire procession, not a single person glances in my direction. I am not part of the presentation. I am the accessory they forgot in the car. My father, Frank, is holding court by the bar, his voice a low, proud rumble. I can hear him even from here. Oh, yes, absolutely, he's saying to a group of men in suits. Sloane is already being assigned one of the biggest corruption cases in the county's history. It's a real beast, but she'll handle it. That's my girl. A real job, you know? Something that actually helps people, makes a difference. A server, a young man with an exhausted face, pushes the swinging door open from the kitchen. The smell of dish soap and hot steam hits me again, along with the sound of a dropped tray. He looks at me, surprised. "Oh, sorry. Ma'am, didn't see you there." "No problem," I murmur. Earlier, when we arrived, I saw the seating chart. My mother had intercepted my gaze. "Oh, Riley, darling," she'd said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "I had them put you at table 11. It's just so much more convenient for you. Right by the door. So you'll be the first to get the hot food when it comes out. Isn't that nice?" Sweet, but hollow, a lie so thin it was transparent. It was not a kindness. It was a strategic placement. I was the unmarketable daughter, shuffled to the back, convenient for the service, not for the guests. The string quartet finishes its sad song and, after a long, awkward pause, begins another. Sloane, now at the center of the room, lifts a champagne flute. Her table, table 1, is filled with the elite. The mayor, the chief of police, Judge Hemlock, my mother and father are there, beaming, their faces flushed with vicarious glory. Sloane taps her glass. The room quietens. She begins, her voice practiced, humble, but projecting perfectly. "I just wanted to say a few words." My mother dabs her eye with a cocktail napkin. Sloane pauses, smiling. "This is overwhelming, to be here, with all of you, the people who make this community what it is." She looks over at our parents. "To my family, who taught me the value of hard work, of discipline." She scans the room, her gaze sweeping over the important tables. Her eyes meet mine for a fraction of a second. There is no warmth. There is only victory. "It is a privilege to serve," she continues. "It is a privilege to choose a path of real, tangible contribution. Not everyone is built for that, of course." She gives a small, self-deprecating laugh. But it is as sharp as a blade. I know some people are happy to sit in dark rooms and play games, and that's fine, but I always knew I wanted to do something that mattered, something real. The front tables chuckle, a knowing, appreciative sound. The banker, Mr. Abernathy, raises his glass to her in a silent cheers. The mayor nods in solemn agreement. I do not move. I do not blink. I just watch. I record every face, every smirk, every condescending nod. I catalog them. The man who laughed, the woman who rolled her eyes in agreement. I see them all. This is the real world they are so proud of. And then it begins. It is almost imperceptible at first, a single vibration. At table 2, a woman, the wife of a local developer, discreetly checks her phone in her lap. Her smile freezes. She stops listening to the man beside her. She purses her lips, her eyes widening. She taps the screen, then taps it again. She leans over to her husband, her hand on his arm, and whispers something urgent. He shakes his head, annoyed, then looks down at the phone she shoves in his face. His cigar, unlit, drops from his lips onto his plate. At table 4, Mr. Abernathy, the banker, lets out a small, choked sound. He had his phone resting on the table, and the notification lit up his screen. He snatches it up. He scrolls. His face, which had been ruddy and cheerful, turns a pale, sickly gray. I hear a muffled word from across the room. "No." At table 7, a young partner from Sloane's new office mimes shock, his eyes glued to his device. He scrolls, his thumb moving frantically. He looks up, his gaze sweeping the room, confused. He whispers to the person next to him, "Riley Hart? Is that Hart? Like Sloane's sister?" The information is a virus. It is spreading faster than the string quartet's music. It leaps from table to table, a silent, digital shockwave. A whisper here, a phone pass there. The polite, attentive smiles are gone, replaced by slack jaws and wide eyes. I check the clock on the wall. 9:29. They are 1 minute early. My mother is still oblivious. She is in a bubble of her own making, her back to the room. still telling the chief of police's wife about Sloane's upcoming court schedule. "Oh, the hours are just brutal," Elaine is saying, her voice glittering with pride. "But that's what it takes to be on the front lines." On stage, the MC, the councilman, seems to be the last to notice. He is still beaming. "Let's hear it one more time for Sloane Hart." The applause is scattered, distracted, pathetic. The room is no longer focused on the stage. It is focused on its phones. "And now," the MC booms, trying to reclaim the energy, "I'd like to invite our guest of honor, our new assistant district attorney, Sloane Hart, to the podium for her official remarks." Sloane stands up. The spotlight finds her, and she is a vision in a sharp, navy blue suit. She is everything they wanted. She is the perfect daughter, the real winner. She walks to the podium. She adjusts the microphone. She has a speech, prepared on index cards. I look at her, and I brace myself. I know what is coming. This is the final act of her triumph. This is the spike in the grass. Sloane looks out at the room. She must feel it. The shift, the sudden, cold, electric tension. The air has been sucked out of the hall. People are not looking at her. They are looking at their phones. And then they are looking, not at the stage, but at the back of the room. They are looking at table 11. They are looking at me. Sloane's smile falters. She grips the sides of the podium. She launches into her speech, but her voice is a little too high. "Thank you, Councilman," she says, her eyes scanning the crowd, searching for the faces that were just adoring her. "Thank you, all of you. It's an honor." But no one is listening. The whispers are now a low, humming roar. Riley Hart, Starforge, Series E funding, billion, with a B. Her? The one at the back? Sloane knows she has lost the room. She panics. She skips 3 pages of her speech. She goes straight for the kill. She looks directly at our parents, at table 1. Her eyes are bright, and for a second, I think I see fear in them. She takes a deep breath. "But most of all," she says, her voice ringing out, desperate, "I want to thank my mother. Mom, thank you." Elaine, finally sensing the shift, turns to look at her. "Thank you," Sloane repeats, "for teaching me the value of being realistic. Thank you for pushing me to get a real job, to build a real life. I just wish—" She pauses, and she turns her head, her gaze locking with mine across the entire, vast, silent expanse of the banquet hall. "I just wish someone else in this family was as realistic." It was supposed to be her closing line, her grand finale, the punchline that proved, once and for all, who the winner was. A smattering of confused applause starts, and then it dies instantly. Because at that exact second, every single phone in the room, on every table, lights up, not with a notification, not with a vibration. They light up with the official, synced, 9:30 p.m. Eastern push alert from the Ledger News app. The room is silent, and then, as 150 people look down, and the applause, for Sloane Hart, the real winner, stops dead. The silence in the Aurelia banquet hall was absolute. It was heavier than the fake crystal chandeliers, more oppressive than the smell of the salmon. Sloane stood frozen at the podium. Her final, cruel words, "I just wish someone else in this family was as realistic," hanging in the dead air. Then, a sound, a gasp. It came from table 4, Mr. Abernathy, the banker who held my parents' mortgage, the man who had chuckled at Sloane's playing games joke. His phone was held in a trembling hand. His mouth was open. "My God," he whispered, loud enough to carry in the vacuum. "It is 9.2 billion. Another voice, near the front. "Billion? With a B?" Mr. Abernathy did not look up. He was scrolling, his face the color of spoiled milk. "Starforge. It is Starforge. Their Series E valuation, $9.2 billion. And—" He looked up, his eyes wide, terrified, and scanned the room until they found me. Me. At table 11. The virus had found its host. The whispers started, no longer confused, but sharp, pointed. Who is that? That is the sister, the other one. She is sitting at table 11? By the kitchen? The shame that was meant for me suddenly reversed course. It was no longer about my dress or my non-job. It was about their placement of me. I could feel the realization hitting them. They had put the $9 billion woman next to the service entrance. I watched Judge Hemlock, my mother's closest confidant, the man who had pinched Sloane's cheek. He had been looking at his own phone. He set it down on the table, picked up his glass of whiskey, and drained it in one violent motion. He slammed the glass down, the thud echoing in the silence. He glared across the room, not at me, but at my mother, Elaine. His expression was no longer fawning. It was cold, accusatory. He looked furious. My father, Frank, had not looked at his phone. He was looking at Abernathy's gray face. His friend, a man from his golf club, leaned over and showed him the screen. I watched my father's blood drain. It was not a metaphor. The ruddy, proud flush was gone, replaced by a waxy, translucent pallor. His hands, which had been clapping so proudly, were now gripping the edge of table 1. He stood up, knocking his chair back slightly. He looked unsteady. My mother, Elaine, was the last to understand. She was still turned toward Sloane, her smile frozen in a mask of maternal pride. But the silence, the whispers, the anger from Judge Hemlock, finally broke through. "Frank?" she whispered. "What is it?" Her phone, the one she had left on the table, was bright. A woman next to her, one of the museum board members, nudged it. "Elaine, dear, you should look at this." My mother picked up the phone. Her hand was shaking so badly she almost dropped it. She squinted, her reading glasses still in her purse. She held the phone close to her face, and she saw me. It was not just text. It was the cover, the Ledger digital cover, a photo of me, not in this simple blue dress, but in my office in Revel City. I was standing in front of the data wall, a 2-story screen of glowing code. I was not smiling. I looked strong, tired, and in control, and the title, in huge, white, block letters over the image, "The Woman Who Rewrote the Rules of Play." Elaine made a sound, a small, strangled noise, like a bird being stepped on. She dropped the phone onto the table as if it had burned her. All eyes were now ping-ponging between the stage, table 1 and table 11. Sloane was still at the podium, a statue. The spotlight was still on her, but the light felt like an accusation. She watched my mother's reaction, her eyes wide with confusion, and then she followed my mother's horrified gaze. She saw her looking at me. "Dad?" Sloane's voice was small, tentative. The microphone carried her whisper through the entire silent hall. "Mom, what is wrong?" My father ignored her. He was moving, walking away from table 1. He was walking toward me. He was unsteady, bumping into a chair. He looked like a man walking through water. He stopped in front of table 11. The county clerk's cousin and the junior paralegals shrank back in their seats. My father stared at me. His face was a canvas of pure, unadulterated shock. "Riley," he whispered. His voice was hoarse. The phones, this joke." I looked up at him. I did not stand. I did not flinch. "Is this," he struggled, gesturing vaguely at the room, "is this real?" I let the question hang for a beat. I thought of the attic. I thought of the ramen. I thought of the 47 rejections. I thought of the $2,800 from my Subaru. "It is real," I said. My voice was low, clear, and steady. It carried. I offered no comfort, no apology for my own existence. His face crumpled. He took a step back, as if I had physically struck him. The silence that followed was different. It was final. The only sound in the entire vast room was the thwack, thwack, thwack of the kitchen door as a server, oblivious, pushed through it with a tray of empty glasses. The sound was a hammer blow in the quiet. On stage, Sloane heard my words. It is real. She saw my father's reaction. She understood. This was not a joke. Her night, her glory, her real job had just been eclipsed by a solar flare. She made a small, broken sound. Not fair, she breathed. It was the whisper of a child, the complaint of someone who had always gotten the bigger piece of cake. The microphone, still live, carried it to everyone. It is not fair. And then she dropped the microphone. It hit the podium with a loud, wooden thump, then clattered onto the floor, emitting a deafening screech of feedback that made everyone jump. The spell was broken. The room exploded in noise. But the humiliation was not over. A man in a tuxedo, Mr. Harrison, the president of the Community Foundation and the official patron of the event, was now rushing forward. But he was not going to the stage. He was walking, very fast, toward table 1, toward my mother. "Elaine," he was saying, his voice a high, stressed tenor. "Elaine, my God, I had no idea." My mother looked at him, her eyes vacant with shock. What? The donation. The anonymous donation that funded this whole evening. The new computers for the youth center. The scholarship fund. He was holding his own phone, which was also open to the article. "It came from the Starforge Foundation. Elaine, it was her. Your daughter. She is our largest donor. She has been funding half the projects we celebrated tonight." A collective gasp went through the room. Elaine looked as if she was going to faint. And then, the final, beautiful, terrible act. The large LED screen behind the stage, which had been scrolling a "thank you to our sponsors" loop, suddenly flickered. The technicians, clearly in a panic, were trying to fix the feedback from the mic. Instead, the loop reset. The main thank you slide came up. At the top, the platinum sponsor, the logo had been a stylized, anonymous S inside a circle, an abstract design I had requested to keep it quiet. But now, with the Ledger article open on 150 phones, everyone in the room knew exactly what it was. It was the logo for Starforge. It had been staring them in the face all night. The banner that read, "Serving the Community is Glory," was, in fact, sponsored by me, the girl playing games in a dark room. The MC, the councilman, stumbled back to the podium. He picked up the screaming microphone and fumbled to turn it off. The feedback died. He stared at the crowd, his face ashen. He stammered. We will now have a musical interlude." He gestured wildly to the string quartet. The quartet, who had been staring at their own phones, looked up in terror. The lead violinist fumbled, picked up her bow, and drew a single, screeching, out-of-tune note. Then she stopped. She put the bow down. No one was going to play. The power in the room had not just shifted, it had been unplugged, moved across the hall, and plugged into a different socket, a socket located right at table 11. The room was a sea of frozen faces, 150 statues staring at the wreckage. My father, Frank, was still standing in the aisle, his body listing slightly, like a ship that had taken on too much water. His eyes were hollow, fixed on me. "Riley," he said again, his voice a dry rasp. "All these years, all this money, why did you not tell us? Why did you not say something?" I looked at my father, the man who taught me to ride a bike and then told me my video game was a waste of time. The man who framed Sloane's acceptance letter and asked me if my degree would help with the SATs. "I did," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the murmuring. I told you when I built my first game. I told you when I changed my major. I told you when I moved to Revel City. I have been telling you for 10 years. You just were not listening. You were listening for lawyer. You were listening for doctor. You were not listening for me." A commotion. My mother, Elaine, was pushing her way through the stunned crowd. The museum board women were grabbing at her, but she shook them off. Her face was a terrible, pale mask of confusion and a new, dawning horror. She arrived at table 11, her sequined jacket catching the light, her hands fluttering. "Riley," she stammered, her voice a high-pitched, unnatural thing. "Riley, I, we are so, I am so proud." Her eyes were not proud. They were terrified. They were calculating. She was looking at me like I was a bomb she had just discovered in her living room. "Proud?" I asked, and the word felt like ash in my mouth. "Are you proud of me, Mom? Or are you proud of the number on Mr. Abernathy's phone screen?" She flinched, as if I had slapped her. "How can you— That is not— We are your family." "Elaine! Frank!" A new voice, sharp and furious. Sloane. She had come off the stage, her face blotchy and red under the harsh lights, her fists clenched. She was not whispering. She was snarling. "She did this on purpose. She did this to ruin my night." She pointed a trembling finger at me. You planned this. This was my night, mine, and you, with your stupid, fake job. You ruined it." "The article's release was not my choice. Sloane," I said, my voice remaining flat. "I tried to stop it, but as for your night, the banquet you are celebrating, the community fund that paid for those banners in this room, I am the anonymous donor. Sloane, you are standing at my party. I paid for this." The air left her lungs. What? Okay, let's all just take a breath," a man said, stepping forward from table 1, one of Sloane's lawyer friends, his face slick with sweat. "This is clearly a misunderstanding, a family thing. Why do we not all just calm down?" He was met with the cold, silent judgment of the room. Judge Hemlock was watching my mother with undisguised contempt. Mr. Abernathy was staring at my father, his banker's mind clearly reassessing every financial conversation they had ever had. The power had shifted, and this man's weak attempt to mediate was pathetic. A flash, a small one, from the side. A young woman I vaguely recognized from the Maple Ridge Monitor, the tiny local paper Sloane had been so proud to be featured in, was standing by a potted palm. Her phone held up, recording. "Ms. Hart?" she asked, her voice trembling with the adrenaline of the scoop. "Ms. Riley Hart? Can you confirm the $9.2 billion valuation? Is it true you are the primary donor for the Northport Fund?" I turned my head to her. I gave her nothing. "I think you are confusing an adult family drama with a news story," I said, my voice cold. "There are no children involved here, so there is no reason to film this. Turn it off." The reporter, shamed, lowered her phone. During that exchange, I watched two realizations happen simultaneously. My father, Frank, had gone rigid. His hand, which had been hanging limp at his side, slowly went to his jacket pocket, to his wallet. I knew what he was thinking. I could see it on his face. The congratulations gift he had bought Sloane last week, a brand new luxury car. He had been so proud, telling me he was dipping into savings, but he had not. He had been short. He had used the joint access credit card I had given him 5 years ago. For emergencies only, an account I had funded, an account he clearly thought was just a small, helpful buffer. The look on his face was not shame. It was a deeper, more profound humiliation. He had used my play money to buy a trophy for his real daughter. At the same time, my mother's face went slack, her eyes unfocused. I knew that look. She was remembering. I saw her hand, as if in a memory, pick up a glass of iced tea. I saw her place it down on the glossy cover of a magazine she had dismissed as technical junk mail and left on the coffee table. The magazine she had used as a coaster, the one with my face on the cover, 3 months ago, the one titled, "The Unseen Giants of Tech." She had not even recognized me. "I do not need your praise," I said, my voice low, speaking to the small, horrified circle of my family. "Not tonight. It is too late. I needed your respect. I needed it for the last 10 years. That was what broke Sloane. It was not a dignified, cinematic tear. It was a sob, a raw, ugly, gulping sound that came from her chest. It was the sound of a lifetime of being the perfect one, the real one, a lifetime of effort, all of it rendered meaningless in 10 minutes by a push notification. She was jealous, yes, but more than that, she was lost. Her entire world, the entire system she had mastered, the rules she had followed perfectly, had just been declared null and void. The game was over, and she had been playing the wrong one. That was my cue. I stood up from table 11. The junior paralegals flinched. I picked up my clutch. I looked at Frank, at Elaine, at the crying, broken woman who was my sister. I said nothing. I turned, and I began to walk. I did not go around the edge of the room. I walked straight through the center, through the gap between table 1 and table 2. The room parted for me. People pulled in their chairs, went silent as I passed. The whispers died. I could feel their eyes, 150 pairs of them, burning into my back. They were the eyes of people who had, moments ago, dismissed me as a non-entity. Now, they were desperate. Ms. Hart, Mr. Harrison, the foundation president, called out, half rising from his seat. Please, we must talk. Riley, Mr. Abernathy, the banker, was on his feet. We should have lunch. My office. I did not slow down. I did not look left or right. I walked out of the banquet hall, through the main archway, and into the grand, empty marble-floored lobby of the Aurelia Hotel. The air was cooler here. The sound of the string quartet, which had weakly started to play again, was muffled, distant. I was almost at the glass revolving doors. Riley! A hand grabbed my arm, hard, nails digging in. I stopped. I turned. It was Sloane. She had run after me. Her face was a wreck. Her perfect 80-approved makeup was streaming in black rivers down her cheeks. Her hair was coming undone. She was breathing hard, a picture of total, frantic disintegration. You cannot, she panted, her voice cracking. You cannot just walk away. You did this. You think you are so much better than us. You think your money makes you... I waited. I let her spin out. Then I spoke. My voice was low. It did not echo in the marble lobby. It was absorbed by the heavy carpets. It was for her, and her alone. This is not about money, Sloane, I said. This is about a measuring stick. Their measuring stick. I looked into her wild, uncomprehending eyes. I held her gaze. I did not pity her. I just showed her the truth. You do not hate me, I said, very softly, very clearly. You hate the measuring stick you have spent your entire life trying to be. Her hand, the one gripping my arm, went slack. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The fury, the jealousy, it all just evaporated, leaving her empty. She backed away, one step, then another. She looked at her own hands, as if seeing them for the first time. She looked at her perfect suit, her pearls. She looked at the banquet hall, where the party for her real job was being held, and she sank. She did not faint. She just collapsed. She fell sideways onto one of the ridiculously ornate, plush, dark red velvet chairs that lined the lobby. She sat there, a heap of navy blue fabric and ruined mascara, and stared at the marble floor. The paint on her medal, the one she had won for being the perfect daughter, was peeling, and underneath, it was just hollow tin. I turned. I did not say another word. I walked to the revolving doors, pushed through, and stepped out into the cold night air. The valet, surprised, scrambled for my ticket, but I just waved him off. I chose silence. It was the only response that mattered. I kept walking, my heels clicking on the pavement, and I did not look back. I walked out of the Aurelia Hotel, and I did not look back. I did not go to the valet. My driver was already there, parked a block away. Alerted by a single text, I got into the back of the black sedan and the door closed with a heavy, soundproof thud. The noise of the street, the shock, the distant, muffled sound of the party I had just destroyed, it all vanished. "Revel City, please," I said. The drive was 3 hours. I spent it in total silence, watching the dark, rural highways of my past blur into the multi-lane, brightly lit interstates of my present. My penthouse is not a home, it is a fortress. It sits 48 floors above Revel City, and the elevator opens directly into the foyer. When the doors slid open, the apartment was dark, silent. I stepped out onto the cold marble. I did not turn on the overhead lights. I walked through the massive, empty living room, past the art I bought because it was a good investment, not because I loved it. I stopped in front of the window. The entire wall was glass. The city below was a sprawling, silent circuit board of light. I unzipped the simple blue dress, the one my mother had called neat, and let it fall to the floor. I stood there for a long time, just breathing. My clutch was on the kitchen island. It was vibrating. The sound was obscene in the silence, a low, angry buzz against the granite. It was not a single call. It was a sustained, hysterical seizure. The world had found my number. I finally walked over and dumped its contents: the phone, a single keycard, a tube of lip gloss. The screen was a cascading waterfall of locked screen notifications. My personal email, which only a handful of people had, was screaming. Urgent. Booking request. Good Morning America. Interview offer. CNBC. Closing bell. The Ledger story. A conversation with the Times. The texts were worse. Numbers I did not recognize. Old college roommates. Third cousins I had not seen in a decade. "Riley, it's me. Becky, remember? We had chem lab together? I'm in real estate now. Let's connect." "Ms. Hart, my name is David. I have an invention that will change the world. I just need a small investment of $200,000. And the charities, open letters from Foundations for Everything, curing diseases, saving forests, building schools for children. They all wanted a piece of the $9.2 billion. They all wanted a check from the girl at table 11. And then there was the thread from my mother. It was a novel of escalating panic. "Riley, please answer your phone. You embarrassed us. You embarrassed your sister. Where are you? Your father is having chest pains. Riley, I am ordering you to come back to the house. We need to fix this. We need to release a statement. Sloan is destroyed. This was her night. How could you be so selfish? Riley, come home." I stared at the messages. Fix this. Selfish. Her night. Even now, faced with a reality she could not comprehend, she was still trying to edit me, to correct me, to make me fit into her narrative. I silenced her notification thread. A new message popped up, this one on my secure work channel. Maya. System is stable. Traffic surge from the Ledger link is massive. Our careers page traffic is up 1,200%. DAU is up 31% since 9:30 p.m. The servers are holding. You broke the internet, boss. Hope you're okay. The team is buzzing. This was real. The work, the data. I texted back, my thumbs moving quickly. I'm fine. This is just noise. The DAU increase isn't a victory. It's a new baseline. Tell the DevOps team to prepare for a sustained load. This is a stress test, not a party. And Maya? Give the team my thanks. Tell them they built a rock-solid system. Proud of them. I did not mention my family. I did not mention the money. I did not mention the humiliation. I praised the team, and I focused on the work. I opened my laptop. The story was metastasizing. The Ledger piece was the canon, but the shrapnel was flying everywhere. The headline on the most popular news aggregator, The Table 11. Incident. Billionaire founder, hid in plain sight at sister's real job party. A tech blog. Starforge CEO, Riley Hart, finally steps out. By the kitchen door. They were digging, finding Sloan's Instagram posts about her important job. They found my mother's letters to the editor in the Maple Ridge Monitor praising local, practical careers. They had turned my family's private, targeted disdain for me into a national, public conversation about real jobs versus play jobs. I was a meme. I remembered that night, years ago, when the first Starforge server crashed. The three of us, Maya, Theo, and I, huddled in that freezing attic. We had failed. The system was down, and we had started laughing. We laughed until we cried, because we had built something too many people wanted, all at once. Tonight, another system had crashed. My mother's social hierarchy, my father's value system, Sloane's entire identity. It had all overloaded and gone dark, and I was not laughing. I was just still. The adrenaline was gone. There was only the quiet hum of my own servers, successfully handling the load. My work instincts took over. The veil was gone. The anonymity of the Starforge Foundation was compromised. I opened my calendar. I sent a 7 a.m. meeting request to my general counsel. Subject: Foundation Strategy. Body: The anonymity protocol for the Northport Fund and others is now a liability. We need a new PR strategy. We need to decide by end of day if we lean into this, go fully public, and control the narrative, or if we restructure the donation vehicles, get the team ready. An email. This one was from a name I knew well, the CEO of our largest competitor, a man who had once called Starforge a niche toy. Subject: Congratulations, Riley. That was quite the fireworks show, a remarkable story. You've built an impressive machine. I'll give you that. If you're tired of all this, new attention. You know my number. Perhaps it's time we discussed a merger. We could own the entire world together. I read the email twice. He thought this made me weak. He thought this family drama, this public exposure, was a vulnerability. He saw a distracted, emotional woman he could manipulate. A cold, thin smile touched my lips. He was bleeding. His last quarterly report was weak. This valuation, this public validation of my company, scared him. This was not an offer. It was a white flag disguised as a Trojan horse. I forwarded the email to Theo, my COO. Theo, he's terrified. He thinks this noise is a vulnerability. He's wrong. I want a full breakdown of his Q3 user retention numbers. I want to know how much cash he's burning. I think it's time we explored an acquisition of his best animation studio. Set the meeting. My personal phone buzzed, not the frantic buzzing from before. A single vibration. A new text from my father. I'm sorry. 2 words. Not, I am sorry. Not an explanation. Just, I'm sorry. It was the first message he had ever sent me that was not a command, a piece of advice, or a correction. It was an admission of something. I stared at it. It was short. It was awkward. It was wholly insufficient. I did not know how to respond. I did not reply. As if summoned, the screen lit up. Elaine Hart, incoming video call. Her face, wide-eyed, puffy, desperate, trying to force its way into my sanctuary. I pressed the red decline button. The room was too hot, the silence too loud. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and found the panel. I pressed the button. The glass slid open with a whisper, and a blast of cold, clean November air hit me. It smelled like altitude and the distant promise of snow. I stood in the wind, my hair whipping around my face. I took a deep breath. A second, a third. I was washing the Aurelia Hotel off me. I was washing Maple Ridge out of my lungs. A ritual, a purge. They would call again. They would demand to see me. They would try to fix this. I would not go to them. Not this time. I would not be summoned to the kitchen table to be lectured. I would meet them, but on my terms, in my city, in my building. I stood there, in the cold air, and I set the agenda. First, we would not talk about the money. The $9.2 billion was a symptom, not the disease. I would not let them turn this into a negotiation. Second, we would not use comparisons. The measuring stick is broken. Sloane's name would not be used as a weapon, and my name would not be used as a trophy. Third, this was not about forgiveness. It was about accountability. Affection was not a transaction. They could not use "I love you" to paper over "I disrespected you." I walked back inside, letting the window close. I went to my desk, a single, severe piece of wood and steel. I took out a heavy sheet of my personal stationery and a pen. I wrote 3 words on it, the agenda for our first real family meeting. Respect. Accountability. Boundaries. My dignity was not on the table. It was not negotiable. It was almost 3 a.m. I walked into my bedroom. I took the phone, the one still glowing with the frantic energy of a world I had just shaken. I powered it completely off. Not on silent. Off. I set the dead black rectangle on my nightstand. I went to the bathroom. I washed my face. I looked at the person in the mirror. The unrealistic one. The impractical one. The one who played games. I got into bed. The sheets were cold and crisp. The city lights outside were a muted glow. I closed my eyes. I expected the adrenaline to keep me awake. I expected to replay every conversation, every insult. Instead, there was only quiet. I was asleep in 4 minutes. I slept for 4 straight hours. A deep, black, dreamless sleep. It was the best sleep I had gotten in years. I sent the text in the morning. My building, my office, 3 p.m., come alone. I did not go back to Maple Ridge. I did not drive the 3 hours to the house I grew up in. I made them come to me. I made them leave the familiar territory where their rules applied. I made them drive the 3 hours into Revel City, past the county line, into my world. My office is not an office. It is a glass box on the 48th floor. My personal desk is in the corner. But the meeting took place in the attached private lounge. It is not designed to be comfortable. It is designed to be impressive. It has low, severe Italian furniture, a single piece of abstract art, and a wall of glass overlooking the shipping channel. They arrived at 2:57. My assistant, not me, met them in the lobby, badged them, and brought them up the private elevator. When they walked in, they were not the titans of the Aurelia Hotel. They were just 2 people from the suburbs, looking small and out of place. My father was wearing his good suit, the one he wore to weddings. My mother was wearing pearls and a look of profound, disoriented terror. The smell of the city, the height, the sheer scale of the building had already done half the work. They were off balance. I did not have them come to the kitchen in my penthouse. That felt too domestic, too familiar. I chose my office, my territory. But they did not want to be there. After 10 minutes of stilted, awful silence, where my father just stared at the floor and my mother just stared at me, my father cleared his throat. "Riley," he said, his voice a rasp, Can we not do this here? Can we just go home? Elaine, she cooked." I looked at my mother. She was clutching her purse. She nodded, her eyes desperate. I made your favorite sauce. The one from when you were in 8th grade. It is at home, in the kitchen." The kitchen, the battlefield, the place where I was graded, measured, and found lacking. Not the grand dining room, where the framed letter from Brooks and Hale hung. The kitchen, the small formica-topped table where we ate weeknight meals. The place where my report cards were signed. The place where I was told I had potential, but Sloane had discipline. This was a negotiation. They were offering me a familiar battleground, one where they felt they had the advantage. I looked at them, 2 aging, terrified people, and I realized the power had shifted so completely. It did not matter where we were. I could give them this. "All right," I said. I stood up. "I will drive." The 3-hour drive back to Maple Ridge was silent. I drove. I did not let my father drive. I drove my own car. A dark, understated German sedan that cost more than their house. They sat in the back. I watched them in the rearview mirror. They looked like hostages. When we walked into the house, the smell of garlic and simmering tomatoes was thick. It was the smell of my childhood. It was the smell of my 8th grade science project, the one that got me a B+ because I had coded a simulation instead of building a volcano. Too abstract, Riley, my father had said, right at that kitchen table. And that was where we sat. I did not let them move to the dining room. I sat down at the small, circular kitchen table, the B+ table. I sat in the chair that faced the wall. My mother, on autopilot, bustled around the stove. She was not serving a meal. She was building a barricade of activity. My father sat opposite me. He stared at the wood grain of the table. "Frank," I said, my voice quiet. "Turn off the stove. Mom, sit down." It is almost ready," she stammered. "Sit down." She flinched. She turned off the gas. The bubbling sound stopped. The silence rushed in. She sat, her hands folded, a perfect picture of a woman bracing for impact. My father was the first to break. He was a man who hated silence, hated not knowing the rules. "I did not listen to you, Riley," he said, his voice flat, defeated. He was not looking at me. He was looking at the salt shaker. I admit that I did not listen to you." He shook his head. "I was listening to Judge Hemlock, to Mr. Abernathy. I was listening to other people's titles. The judge, the banker, the ADA. They were real. They were solid. I could understand them." He finally looked at me, his eyes wet and confused. I did not understand Series E funding. I did not understand daily active users. It was just noise to me. It sounded like play. "So you did not bother to learn," I said. It was not an accusation. It was a statement of fact. "I was afraid," my mother burst out, her voice too high, too sharp. "I was terrified for you. Sloan had a path. She had benefits. She had a pension. It was safe. I knew she would be safe, but you were in that attic. You were selling your car. You were not sleeping. You were going to fail. You were going to end up with nothing. With no insurance. With nothing to show for it. I was afraid for your future." "No, Mom," I said, my voice cutting through her panic. "You were not afraid for my future. You were afraid of being embarrassed." She stopped. "You were afraid your friends, the women on the museum board, would ask what I was doing, and you would not have an answer that impressed them. You were not afraid I would be poor. You were afraid I would be unpresentable. You were afraid for your reputation, not my future." She opened her mouth, and then she closed it. She had no defense. She knew it was the truth. I looked around the kitchen. In the corner, by the pantry, was a stack of large, brown, cardboard boxes. They were sealed with packing tape. "Brooks and Hale," one of them read. "Sloane's wedding china," my mother whispered, following my gaze. It is still in the boxes." She was talking about the life Sloane was supposed to have, the wedding that had not happened, the perfect path that had turned out to be just as fraught as mine. I did not say anything. I did not bring up the money I had given Sloane, quietly, to cover the deposit she lost on the wedding hall. I did not mention the checks. I did not mention the $9.2 billion. "You think this was easy," I said, my voice low. "You think I was playing. You want to know what the not real job was?" I leaned forward. The not real job was hearing no 52 times, 52 different men, just like you, Dad, who told me my idea was a toy. It was selling my car for $2,800 and making that last for 3 months. It was sleeping on a floor next to a server that was so hot I was afraid it would catch fire. It was figuring out how to make payroll for 200 people, knowing that if I made one mistake, 200 families would not be able to pay their mortgage. It was getting up every day, for 10 years, with the entire weight of that on my shoulders, and doing it anyway. I looked at my father. "Do you know, 2 years ago, I developed such bad carpal tunnel from coding and typing that I could not feel my right hand for a month. The doctor, A real one, with a title you'd like. Prescribe me oxycodone. He said the pain was severe, and I looked at the bottle, and I thought, if I take this, if I like this, if I get addicted, Starforge dies. 200 people lose their jobs, so I threw the bottle in the trash. I went home, and I taught myself to type and code with my left hand for 6 weeks until my right one healed. My father was not looking at the salt shaker anymore. He was crying. Not the proud, public tears from Sloane's party. These were silent, ugly, shaking tears. He was not just hearing about my willpower. He was hearing about the pain I had endured, alone, while he was busy putting future ADA stickers on his car. He was finally seeing my strength. My mother was pale. "Riley," she whispered, we would have helped. Why did you not give us a chance?" "A chance?" I almost laughed. "Mom, I gave you a chance every time I came home. I gave you a chance every time you asked me what I was doing. I gave you a chance when I tried to show you my first game. I gave you a chance when I tried to explain what a server was. I gave you dozens of chances. But you did not want the real answer. You just wanted me to say, 'I give up. You were right. Sloane was right. How do I apply for a job at the post office?'" The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the sound of my father trying to catch his breath. The truce came slowly, not with apologies, but with new terms. "We will not," I said, my voice firm, "use the phrase 'real job' in this house ever again. Not about me, not about Sloane, not about anyone." My father nodded, wiping his face. "Okay, yes. And you will not speak for me, to anyone, the press, the neighbors, Judge Hemlock. When they ask you what I do, you will say, 'She runs her company.' If they ask for details, you will tell them to contact my public relations department. You are my parents, not my spokespeople." My mother flinched at the word department, but she nodded. "Yes, Riley." "If," I said, "and this is a very big if, you can do those two things. I will come home for Sunday dinner, once a month. But if the rules are broken, if I hear one word about potential, or discipline, or benefits, I am gone, and I will not be back." "We understand," my father said, his voice thick. "Good." I stood up. The meeting was over. They stood up with me, awkward, unsteady. "There is one more thing," Frank said. "Sloane, she is not good. Riley, she is a mess. She will not leave her apartment. She will not talk to us. She blames you, but she hates herself." "That is between me and Sloane," I said. "Please," he said, taking a step, Let me set up a lunch. All of us. We can—" "No," I was firm. "No audience, no mediators. I will talk to her. But it will be just me and her, face to face. You and Mom will not be there to manage it. Understood?" He looked crestfallen, but he nodded. "Understood." There was a long, terrible, silent moment. We were 3 people, standing in a kitchen that smelled like a childhood that had never been as simple as the sauce. My mother stepped forward, her hands fluttering. "Riley." I did not want the hug, but I took it. She put her arms around me, stiffly. I put my arms around her. It was short. It was awkward. It was not a hug of forgiveness. It was a hug that said, "I am still here." My father joined, putting one hand on my back, one hand on her. We stood there, for about 3 seconds, a clumsy, broken, silent triangle. It was not a resolution, it was a ceasefire. I stepped back. "I have to go. I have a meeting in the city." I walked out of the kitchen, I walked down the hall, I opened the front door, and I left. I got in my car. I sat there for a moment, the engine off. I had done it. I had faced them on their own turf and rewritten the terms of surrender. But as I pulled away from the curb, I knew the real fight was not over. The knot was not untied. It was just loosened. The next battle was Sloane, and she was not just holding a measuring stick. She was holding a broken one, and those were the sharpest. I sent the text 2 days later. Riverbend Park, 8 a.m., the old gazebo. I chose it for a reason. It was neutral ground. It was not my multi-billion-dollar office, and it was not her courthouse. It was a cold, public park in Maple Ridge, a place where we had, a lifetime ago, played on the swings. It was a cold morning, the kind where the air is sharp in your lungs and the sky is a flat, uniform gray. I arrived first. The wooden bench inside the gazebo was damp with morning dew. I did not sit. I stood, watching my breath fog in the air. She arrived at 8:03. She was not wearing a power suit. She was wearing jeans, a heavy winter coat, and a knit hat pulled down low. Her face was pale and puffy. She had not been sleeping. She looked, for the first time in her life, exactly her age. She was not the future ADA. She was not the real winner. She was just a tired, 32-year-old woman. She walked up the steps to the gazebo and stood opposite me. The silence stretched, tight as a guitar string. She was the first to speak. Her voice was not the projected, courtroom-perfect instrument I had heard at the banquet. It was small, raw, and cracked. "I am ashamed." She said it to the floor, not to me. It was a confession to the universe. "Ashamed," I repeated, my voice flat. "Of what? Sloan? Of the party? Of your speech? Or of the fact that you believed it?" She flinched. She looked up, and her eyes were furious. You think this is easy for me? To... I do not care if it is easy," I said, cutting her off. I was not here to comfort her. "I am here to ask a question. The answer you gave Mom, the one you gave Dad, the one you gave that entire room. That was their answer. Here is my question. Would you be proud of yourself if no one was clapping?" "What?" she whispered. "The banquet, the applause, the title. Take it all away. Take away Mom and Dad. Take away the mayor. Take away the stupid banner. If you were just you, in a room, with your files, would you be proud?" She stared at me, her mouth slightly open, and then, the anger I expected, the anger I was prepared for, just crumbled. She looked away, out at the gray, frozen grass of the park. "I worked hard," she said, her voice defensive, but hollow. You think I did not? You think this was handed to me? Do you have any idea what law school is like? Do you know what it feels like to be $90,000 in student loan debt before you have even made your first opening argument? Do you know what it is like to spend all night, every night, for 3 years, reading cases so dry they turn your brain to dust? She was pacing now, a tight, 2-step circle on the damp wood. You were in your attic, dreaming. I was in a library basement, under fluorescent lights, highlighting textbooks until my fingers bled. I earned that job. I earned that applause. My labor was real. Riley, it was real. "I never said it was not," I said, and my quiet words stopped her cold. She looked at me, confused. "I never said your work was not real. Sloan, you did. You were the one who stood on that stage and drew a line between real contribution and playing games. You were the one who used that measuring stick on me. I never used it on you." I took a step closer. "I know exactly how hard you worked. I know you spent all-nighters. I know about the loans." I paused. "I also know contribution does not just happen in a courtroom. Saving a kid from a toxic online environment, building a digital community where people feel safe enough to connect, giving people a place to escape. That saves people, too. It is just a different kind of courtroom. The work is different, but it is just as real." She shook her head, her eyes bright with tears she refused to let fall. You do not understand." "Then make me," I said. And then, it happened, the confession, the one she had never even admitted to herself. I did not even want to go to law school," she whispered. The words were so quiet. I barely heard them. I got into that post-grad program for art conservation at the museum. I liked it. I liked the the quiet, the detail, the history. I just stared at her. I had never known this. But, she laughed, a bitter, broken sound. But Mom, she said, conservation? What kind of a job is that? Is that a hobby? And Dad? Dad said, Sloan, you are the smart one. You are the stable one. You are the one we can count on. They expected me. I was the one who was supposed to be the success, the one who bought the house, who had the pension, who could take care of them. You were the creative one, the potential. You were the risk. I had to be the sure thing. She finally looked at me, and her face was a landscape of self-destruction. I chose law because it had a title, it had a hierarchy, it had a clear, visible rank. You knew if you were winning, you knew what table you were supposed to sit at. I chose it, because I knew they would clap. She had not just hated the measuring stick, she had built her entire life to be its perfect model. We stood there, in the cold, gray morning, the two of us, the success and the failure, and realized we had both been suffocating. I let the silence sit. I let her confession hang in the air, unjudged. Then I spoke. Okay, I said. So you hate your job? I do not, she started. It is important. Is it? I asked. Or is it just what you settled for? You want to do public service, Sloan? You want to actually, tangibly, help people? She looked at me, wary. Yes, that is what I am doing. Are you? I said. Or are you just processing paperwork for a system you do not even believe in? You want a real fight? Forget the low-level corruption case Dad was bragging about. Right now, there are class action suits being prepared in 3 states against tech companies, not for antitrust, for addictive by design features, for creating platforms that knowingly exploit neurochemical loopholes in teenagers. It is a new frontier of public safety. Sloan, it is where law and ethics and technology are colliding at 1,000 miles an hour. It is a fight that matters, a fight that would use your brain and your real job skills to actually do some good. Her eyes, which had been dull, had a spark in them, a genuine, intellectual spark. She was listening. And then, the old habits, the old transactional, Maple Ridge worldview, kicked in. The spark died. Her face hardened. Oh, she said, her voice dripping with a new, cold sarcasm. I see. And you? You want me to come crawling to you? To ask for your expert opinion? To use your name, your company, to make it legitimate? Is that it, Riley? You want me to beg, so you can finally be the big sister? I looked at her, and I felt, not anger, just a profound, bone-deep sadness. She was still so trapped. No, Sloan, I said, my voice tired. I do not want you to beg. I do not want you to ask for my help. I do not want anything from you. I stepped back, putting space between us. I want you to choose. For the first time in your entire goddamn life, I want you to make a choice that is not about Mom, not about Dad, not about the applause, and not about me. I do not care what you do. But this is on you. She had no answer for that. The silence returned, but it was different. It was not tense. It was empty, waiting. Okay, she finally whispered. Okay. Okay, I agreed. One more thing. Our truce, starting now, has one rule. We do not, ever, attack each other's professions in front of Mom. You do not get to call me a gamer, and I will not call you a paper pusher. We are done feeding her that drama. Agreed? A small, surprised smile touched her lips. Agreed. Good. I pulled out my phone. I opened a file. I am sending you something. It is not a secret. It is not proprietary. It is a copy of the public, open source principles for our new digital safety and youth protection standards, the ones my foundation is funding. I hit send. It is just what I am working on. You do not have to read it. I turned to leave the gazebo. I heard her phone chime. I heard her open the file. I kept walking. "Riley," she called out. I stopped, but I did not turn around. "This is," she said, her voice different, confused. "This is AI-driven sentiment analysis, behavioral nudges. This is incredibly complex." I heard her scrolling on her phone. "The ethical framework, the de-escalation protocols. You built this?" For the first time, she was not seeing the 9.2 billion. She was not seeing the ledger cover. She was seeing the work, the actual 10,000 hour a night, brain-bleedingly complex work. She was seeing the code. She was seeing the ethics. She was seeing my mind. "I built it with my team," I said, still facing away. "It is my not real job." I heard her footsteps. She was off the gazebo, on the grass, walking beside me. We were not touching, just walking. I need time," she said. "Take it," I said. We walked across the cold, damp grass for a full minute, in silence. No one was winning, no one was losing. We were just two people, in a cold park, and the heavy, ornate armor we had worn our entire lives was, piece by piece, falling off and rusting on the ground. We reached the parking lot. I got into my car. She got into hers. I did not know it then, but the knot was not untied. It was just reconfiguring. I did not know that 3 days later, a subpoena would land on her new, important, assistant district attorney desk, a subpoena from a political rival, a county commissioner who wanted to investigate the dangers of local tech, requesting all documentation related to a minor traffic accident involving a local resident, an accident where the driver had allegedly been distracted. A subpoena that named, as its primary target, Starforge. And Sloane, standing there in her office, with my document about ethical design still open on her computer, would read it, and she would make her first real choice. She would bury it. She would not tell her boss, and she would not tell me. I was in a fourth-quarter budget projection meeting in Revel City, staring at a spreadsheet that represented the GDP of a small nation. When my private monitor lit up, it was not a global alert, nothing from the ledger level. It was a local wire alert, pulled from a server monitoring the Maple Ridge Monitor and associated political blogs. The keywords that triggered it were Starforge, Hart, and Northport County ADA, all three, in one small, angry post. I muted the budget meeting. I clicked the link. A county commissioner, a man named Marcus Wallace, was holding an impromptu press conference on the steps of the county building. Wallace was a political lifer, a man who had been irrelevant for 2 decades and was desperate to change that. He saw the Table 11 incident not as a family drama, but as an opportunity. He saw my name, my company, and my sister's new title, and he saw a political ladder. He was demanding a full county investigation. He was grandstanding about public safety and corporate negligence. The pretext was almost laughably thin. A 45-year-old man had rear-ended a mail truck. A minor accident, no injuries. The man, allegedly, had been looking at his phone. The app, allegedly, was Starforge. There were no children involved, no severe harm, just a crumpled bumper and a politician who smelled blood. I read the blog post again. Wallace was publicly calling on the new assistant district attorney, Sloane Hart, to issue an immediate subpoena for all of Starforge's user engagement protocols. The trap was so obvious it was elegant. This was not about a fender bender. This was a test of my sister's loyalty. Staged in public, Wallace had placed her in an impossible position. If Sloane refused the subpoena, she was corrupt, protecting her newly famous billionaire sister. She would be crucified by Wallace and the local press. If she issued the subpoena and launched a public, aggressive investigation, she would be seen as a hero of integrity, but she would be declaring war on her own family. It was the perfect no-win scenario. He was using me to destroy her. I unmuted the budget meeting. "We are done here," I said, closing the spreadsheet. "Reschedule for tomorrow." I sat in my glass-walled office, 48 floors above the city, and I waited. I knew what my father would do. He would call Sloane, frantic, telling her to protect the family. My mother would call, weeping, telling her not to embarrass us again. They would demand she bury it. And I knew what the old Sloane would have done. She would have called me, trapped and furious, blaming me for her dilemma. I did nothing. I respected the firewall. I did not text. I did not call. I did not alert my legal team. The choice, the one we talked about in the cold, Gray Park, had to be hers. The clock on my wall hit 4:05 p.m. My internal chime rang, not my phone, my work system. A new mandatory meeting had appeared on my calendar. Urgent, legal matter, Northport County. It was from my general counsel. I joined the video call. My GC was there, Maya was there, as my CTO, and in the third window, there was Sloane. She was not in the park. She was not the crying girl in the banquet hall lobby. She was at her desk. She was wearing her suit. Her hair was pulled back. She was, in every visual sense, Assistant District Attorney Hart. She did not make eye contact with me. She looked directly at my general counsel. "Mr. Chenoweth," she said, her voice formal, flat, and perfectly procedural. "Pursuant to a formal request from the Northport County Oversight Committee, my office is issuing a subpoena for documents pertaining to Starforge's user policies, specifically those related to in-app notifications and active engagement monitoring. We require all relevant documentation on file." I nearly smiled. She had not buried it. She had not attacked. She had not called me in a panic. She had chosen the third path, the one that was not about family or politics, but about the job, the real job. She had picked up the phone, called our publicly listed legal department, and followed the exact, correct ethical procedure. She was building a firewall of her own. "We understand, Ms. Hart," my GC said, his own face a mask of professional calm. "We will, of course, comply fully." "Thank you," Sloane said. "You will receive the official request within the hour." And her window went dark. My GC turned to me. "Riley, this is awkward." "No," I said. "It is perfect, Maya. I want you to package everything." Maya looked at me, confused. "Everything? Like the anti-addiction protocols I showed Sloane?" "I mean everything," I said. "The active nudge models, the GPS-based notification locks that throttle alerts when a user is moving over 15 miles per hour, the internal research on cognitive load, and the 'Are you still playing?' interrupters we beta tested. Send them the codebase for the ethical AI moderator. Send them the minutes from the meetings where we argued about reducing engagement to promote user health. Send them the entire transparency report." "Riley," my GC interrupted, "that is proprietary. That is handing our competitors the keys to the kingdom." "Commissioner Wallace is setting a bear trap," I said. "He thinks he has caught a corrupt ADA protecting her sister. He thinks we are a toxic company. He is expecting us to fight, to hide, to redact. He wants a scandal. We are not going to give him one. The only way to disarm a trap like this is to flood it with so much light it blinds him. Send it. Send it all." 2 days later, Wallace held his press conference. It was exactly what we expected. He was on the courthouse steps, a small, rabid crowd of local press and bored onlookers. "I am shocked," he yelled into the microphones. "Shocked to find that the district attorney's office is dragging its feet. We have an epidemic of distraction, and now we find that the company responsible is owned by the ADA's own sister. This is corruption." He was practically vibrating with self-righteous glee. "I have here," he yelled, "leaked documents. Documents this company tried to bury. Documents that prove what they are doing." He held up a thick stack of papers. The papers we had sent. The ones he had clearly leaked to himself. A reporter from the tabloid, the one who had been sniffing around since the banquet, grabbed the top page. He started to read, his eyes wide, looking for the juicy headline. And his face just fell. He looked confused. "Commissioner," he said, lowering the paper. This document. It appears to be a protocol that prevents notifications from being sent to users who are traveling at high speeds. Wallace's face turned purple. That is a smokescreen. Look at the next page. The cognitive load report. Another reporter, the one from the monitor, flipped through. This seems to be an internal ethics review, recommending a reduction in engagement time to promote mental health. It says here their goal is sustainable, non-addictive play. The shocking leak was a 300-page dissertation on how to run an ethical, responsible, and safe-by-design technology company. Wallace had not found a smoking gun. He had found a fire extinguisher. And just as the crowd began to murmur, confused, the main doors of the courthouse opened. Sloane walked out. She was not flustered. She was not angry. She walked, with purpose, directly to the bank of microphones Wallace was using. He looked at her, panicked. "Thank you, Commissioner Wallace," she said, her voice cutting through the air, amplified by the speakers. "Thank you for your passion on this issue. The District Attorney's Office takes distracted driving and the safety of our citizens extremely seriously." She held up her own copy of the file. "Which is why," she said, "we subpoenaed these documents from Starforge the moment your concern was raised. We are not slow-walking an investigation. We are, in fact, concluding it." Wallace was speechless. "The facts," Sloane continued, her voice ringing with the calm, cold authority of the law, "are that the driver in question was in violation of traffic laws. The facts are also that the company in question, Starforge, already has safety protocols in place that exceed current federal guidelines. There is no scandal here, Commissioner. There is just an accident." She looked at the confused reporters. "However," she said, pivoting so smoothly I almost applauded, "Commissioner Wallace's passion has highlighted an important gap in our community's understanding of these new technologies. Therefore, I am announcing the formation of a new joint task force between the District Attorney's Office and local technology leaders, including, yes, Starforge, to develop and distribute a new, safe digital use guide for all citizens of Northport County." She had done it. She had not protected me. She had not attacked me. She had taken his weapon, disarmed it, and turned it into a productive policy initiative. She had checkmated him, live on the local news. I watched the stream from my office, and I closed the laptop. I did not call her. I did not text, "Good job." I respected the firewall. The news cycle died instantly. The next day's headline was not ADA and corruption scandal. It was Northport County to launch boring, but important, tech safety task force. The story was over. The gossip in Maple Ridge, which had been fixated on the Table 11 incident for weeks, finally changed. They were not talking about me anymore. They were talking about Sloane. They were talking about her poise, her intelligence, her integrity. They were talking about how she had refused to be bullied by Wallace, and how she had handled the intense pressure of her billionaire sister with absolute professionalism. She had won, not my battle, not our parents' battle. She had won her own. My mother called me that night. She was quiet. "I saw Sloane on the news," she said. She was very calm. She did not yell at that awful man. She just used the facts. There was a long pause. She did a good job. A very good, real job. She stumbled over the word. Maybe a real job is not about the title. Riley, maybe it is just doing the right thing, in public, even when it is hard. "Maybe it is, Mom," I said. My father did not call. Instead, my phone buzzed with a group text, to me and to Sloane. "I watched the news. Sloane, you were excellent. Riley, your company documents were impressive. I am relearning how to listen. I am proud of you both." It was the first time in my life I had ever read that sentence. It felt, for a moment, like peace, like the knot was finally, truly untangled. And then, 2 days later, the email arrived from my mother. It was a mass forward, bright with digital confetti and exclamation points. Subject, wonderful news. The Caro Museum Annual Gala, Darlings, I have the most wonderful news. The gala committee, you know, Mrs. Hemlock, was so impressed with everything. They were so impressed with Sloane's new task force and Riley's foundation that they have asked me to be the keynote speaker for this year's fundraising gala. And the theme, oh, it is just perfect, is the model family, nurturing success in Maple Ridge. They want me to talk about how I raised you both. It is finally our chance, darlings, to stand on stage together and show this entire town what a truly supportive, successful family looks like. I stared at the email. The model family, nurturing success. She was going to do it. She was going to take this fragile, complicated, hard-won truce, and she was going to mount it on a plaque. She was going to put us back on display. The measuring stick was not broken. It was just being polished, and she was about to present it to the entire town. The Caro Museum was not the Aurelia Hotel. The Aurelia was new money, loud, and desperate. The Caro was old, silent, and suffocating. It was a building of marble, stone, and vaulted ceilings that echoed with the sound of polite, old-money judgment, the theme of the gala. Nurturing Success was printed on tasteful ivory banners hung between massive oil paintings of dead, successful men. My mother was going to give the keynote. This was her true ascension. After the Table 11 incident, she had been a pariah. After Sloane's masterful political victory against Commissioner Wallace, she had become a symbol of integrity. Now, with the final piece of the puzzle, me, the billionaire founder, publicly reunited, she was being crowned. She was the matriarch of the model family. We were in a small, cramped office backstage, designated as the VIP holding area. It smelled like floor wax and old curtains. Sloane and I were there, at our mother's insistence, as her visual aides. Elaine was sweating. She was wearing a subdued, expensive gray dress, pearls, and a mask of utter panic. In her hand, she clutched a stack of index cards. "Girls, how do I look?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Mrs. Hemlock said the lighting is direct. Oh, goodness." She looked at her notes, her lips moving, practicing. Nurturing success. It is like building a house. You must start with a solid foundation. You must use a golden mold. "A golden mold," I repeated, my voice flat. "Yes," she said, missing my tone. "A standard of excellence, a framework, a blueprint." Sloane and I locked eyes. It was the same language, the same measuring stick. She was about to walk onto that stage and, in front of the entire town, rebrand her lifelong mistake as a success strategy. She had learned nothing. Sloane looked down, defeated, clearly resigned to just letting it happen. I did not. "Mom," I said. She kept practicing. A blueprint for integrity and hard work. "Mom." I put my hand over her index cards. She stopped. She looked at me, her eyes wide, like a startled animal. "I need 5 minutes," I said. I glanced at Sloane, then back at Elaine. "Alone." Sloane nodded, relieved, and slipped out of the room. The office was suddenly silent, just the hum of a distant air conditioner. "Riley, what is it?" my mother whispered. "I am on in 10 minutes. I need to practice." "Look at those cards," I said, my voice low, not angry, just heavy with consequence. "Read them. That is your speech. It is a speech about a golden mold. It is a speech about how you, the perfect architect, built 2 perfect daughters. It is a lie, and it is the same lie you have been telling yourself, and us, for 30 years. "It is not a lie," she hissed, her vanity pricked. "It isn't an allegory. People want to be inspired." "No," I said. "They want the truth, and so do I. You have a choice to make, right now. You can go out on that stage with those cards, and you can give that speech. You can talk about your mold, and everyone will applaud. And you will be the model family matriarch, And you will lose me. You will lose me again, because you will have proven that you would rather have a good story than a real daughter." Her face went pale. "Or," I continued, "you can take those cards, and you can tear them in half. You can walk out on that stage, and you can tell the truth. You can tell them you were wrong. You can tell them you were so obsessed with real jobs that you missed your children's lives. You can tell them you were terrified and ashamed. You can tell them how you learned, finally, to listen." I took a step back. "If you go out there and talk about the mold, I will walk out that door. I will not be on stage with you. I will not be your prop. But if you go out there and you talk about your mistakes, Sloan and I will be in the front row, and we will be the first two people to stand up." I cannot," she whispered. Her hands were shaking so hard the cards rattled. "Riley, that is humiliation. That is not keynote. Mrs. Hemlock." "I do not care about Mrs. Hemlock," I said. "I care about you. You said you wanted a chance. This is it. Do you want a perfect speech, or do you want to have 2 daughters?" I opened the door. Sloan was standing right outside, her face pale. She had heard every word. "She is on in 5, Sloan said, her voice neutral. I looked at my mother one last time. I did not offer comfort. I just offered the choice. I walked past her, and Sloan and I went to find our seats in the front row. The Caro Museum Gala Hall was packed. Judge Hemlock was at the head table. Mr. Abernathy was there. Commissioner Wallace, my sister's political rival, was in the back, his face sour, forced to attend. The MC, a different one this time, a woman from the museum board, beamed. And now, it is my distinct honor to introduce a woman who exemplifies our theme tonight, a mother who has shown us all what it means to nurture success. Please welcome Elaine Hart. The room applauded. My mother walked out from the wings. She looked small against the massive, dark stage. She walked to the podium. She placed her index cards down. She gripped the sides, her knuckles white. She looked out. She saw the crowd. She saw Judge Hemlock. And then she looked at the front row. She looked at Sloan, and she looked at me. She cleared her throat. "Good evening," she began, her voice shaking. My theme tonight is nurturing success, and I had a speech, prepared." She looked down at the cards. It was a speech about foundations and blueprints and golden molds. She looked up again, her eyes finding mine. "And it is a lie." A gasp, a tiny collective intake of breath from the room. Judge Hemlock's smile froze. "My name is Elaine Hart," my mother said, her voice suddenly stronger. "And I am here tonight to tell you that I failed. For most of my daughter's lives, I was a terrible mother." The silence in the room was absolute. This was not the speech they had paid for. "I loved them," she said, her voice cracking. "But I did not listen to them. I had 2 brilliant, different, extraordinary young women, and I spent almost 30 years trying to force them into the same tiny, suffocating box. I was so obsessed with what the world would think, so terrified of being embarrassed at dinner parties, that I used words like real job as a weapon. I used love as a condition of performance." She was crying now, but she was not wiping the tears. "I missed it," she whispered. "I missed their lives. I missed their struggles. I missed their courage. Because I was too busy looking at their report cards. I was too busy looking at their titles." She took a deep breath. "My apology tonight, publicly, is to my daughters, Sloan, Riley. I am so sorry, but my message is to every parent in this room." She leaned into the microphone. "Stop it. Just stop it. Stop turning your children into a competition. Stop using their accomplishments to heal your own inadequacies. Stop asking them to be realistic when you mean safe. Stop measuring them. Our job is not to nurture success. Our job is to nurture them. Our job is to listen, to listen when they tell us who they are, not who we want them to be. She looked up, finished, terrified, and raw. The room was silent for a full 5 seconds. And then, Sloane stood up, I stood up, and we started to clap. And then the whole room, Mr. Abernathy, the museum board, the people from the real job crowd, they all got to their feet, and they were not clapping for the model family matriarch. They were not clapping for the billionaire's mother. They were clapping for Elaine, for her honesty, for her courage. The MC, her eyes wide, came back on stage. Well, thank you, Elaine, for that incredible honesty. And now, I would like to invite your daughters, Sloane and Riley Hart, to join you. We walked up. My mother was trembling, wiping her face. I took her hand. Sloane took the other. Sloane stepped to the mic first. She was, as always, the picture of professional calm, but her voice was warm. My mother is right, Sloane said. We have lived in a world of false comparisons for too long. The world of law, she nodded to her colleagues, and the world of technology, she nodded to me, are often seen as oppositional. We are here to say that stops, tonight, I am proud to formally announce the Northport Digital Safety Task Force, a joint partnership between the District Attorney's Office and the Starforge Foundation. We will be co-authoring and implementing a new safety and ethics curriculum in every school in this county. She looked at me. We are combining my expertise in the law with my sister's expertise in building the future. The room applauded again. Then it was my turn. I stepped to the microphone. I looked out at the crowd. I saw Commissioner Wallace, his face a mask of thunder. His populist narrative, the one that pitted corrupt tech against the people, had just been evaporated by facts, integrity, and a joint task force. He was irrelevant. My sister is a public servant, I said, my voice clear. I am, in my own way, a public servant. What I have learned, in this, very long, few weeks, is that a real job is not a title, it is not a pension, it is not a banner at a banquet. A real job is simply facing the consequences of the work you do, whether those consequences are argued in a courtroom or whether they live on a server that connects 25 million people. Thank you. As we stood there, in the applause, my father, Frank, walked onto the stage. He did not go to the microphone. He did not say a word. He just walked up to the three of us, his face streaming with tears, and he put one arm around Sloane and one arm around me, and he just hugged us. He held us, my mother, my sister, and me, in the middle of the stage. The camera flashes were blinding. That was the picture. Not the ledger cover, not the valuation, not Sloane swearing in. It was the picture of a man, not a patriarch, just a father, holding his family. That was the picture that ran in the monitor the next day. I stood there, my head on my father's shoulder, and I finally understood. My revenge was not the Aurelia Hotel. It was not the $9.2 billion. That was just noise. My real revenge was this. It was finding that old, warped, broken measuring stick, the one they had used to beat me, the one Sloane had used to build her own prison, and snapping it in half, and then just setting the pieces down. I did not need it, and finally, neither did they. We left the museum an hour later. We walked out of the heavy stone doors into the cold, clear night air. My mother walked beside me, her hands in her pockets. She was quiet. You know, she whispered, not to me, but to the night. I was just thinking about that awful thing I used to say. Maybe if you were more like your sister. She stopped. She looked at me, her eyes, for the first time, clear. I was so wrong, Riley, she said. Maybe if I had been more willing to listen to you sooner. I looked at her, and I smiled, a real one. I did not say, I told you so. I did not say anything. I did not have to. The wind blew, cutting down the street. It was cold, but it was clean. And I thought of that other night, at that other hotel, sitting by the service entrance, feeling the hot, greasy air from the kitchen. This time, the kitchen door was not my seat. It was not my prison. It was just a door. And no one was sitting by it. The knot was untied. Thank you for listening to this story. Comment where you are listening from. Let's connect and share your thoughts. Please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories. Like the video, and give it extra support by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by more people.